Hey everybody, welcome to writing a function from a graph. In this case, we're going to be writing a function from a graph for a square root function. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So this is our square root function, and notice how this graph has 2 points on there. So the one thing you want to do when you graph points or find equations is try to pick up points on the graph. And we're talking square root functions, and so we're going to be talking about this general form, the translated square root function. Okay, so it's important, the first point we find, remember, is h and k. H and k is the vertex. Okay, and on a square root function, it's kind of, I call it the tail, it's right here. And that ordered pair is -1, -4. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute that into our equation, a times the square root of x minus and minus something else. And it's going to be minus here. This is going to be plus 1 on the inside because it's h is negative, so subtracting a negative makes positive. And on the outside, it's going to be -4. So you might think you're done and say, great, I'm done, but I don't have my a value. So I need another point on that same graph, and in this case, I have the point 3, 0. So the vertex is the h and k. Yes, they are x and y points, but they're very specific. They get a specific spot in that graph, h and k. X and y is just any other point other than the vertex on that graph. So we know that y is 0. So we have 0 equals. So we're going to substitute out x and y in. That only leaves us with having a as our unknown. Okay, x is 3. So we have a +1 and a -4. Oops. Okay, so now you got to solve for a. You can isolate the square root first. We can add 4 to both sides, so I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, and so now I'm left with 4 equals a times the square root of 4. Okay, so that becomes 4 equals 2a, and we divide each side by 2. Divide each side by 2, so we get 2 equals a. Okay, and what we can do now is go ahead and write our equation. So our equation becomes y equals 2 times the square root of x plus 1 minus 4. That's the equation that represents this graph. So let's look at one more. So I'm looking at this graph, and it's a little bit different than the other one. It's a reflection. So if I'm looking at this, hopefully I'm saying a is going to be less than 0. It's negative. Okay. Let's identify both points. My vertex is going to be 1, 3. So 1, 3, and that's I'm just going to abbreviate the vertex. The other point that I have looks like 5, 2. Okay. The equation I'm going to use for a square root is y equals a times the square root of x minus h plus k. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do this one at a time like I did last time. So I'm going to plug in my h and k first. So x minus, now this is a positive h value, so it's going to be -1 in here. And then we're going to have plus 3 on the outside. Next, I'm going to plug in my x and y from just my other ordered pair that's on the graph. So I'll go ahead and plug in 2 for y. And I'm going to leave my a value alone. So now I'm only going to have one unknown. My x value is 5. So I'm going to go ahead and plug 5 in there. Okay. And then I'm going to have that plus 3 at the end. So again, isolating the radical. Okay, I can go ahead and subtract 3 from both sides if I wanted to, so I'm going to subtract 3. And I'm going to have -3 here. And so I get -1 equals a times the square root of 4. Okay, and so we know that -1 is going to equal 2a, right? The square root of 4 is 2. So the last step is I divide each side by 2 to get a alone. Okay, so I get -1/2 equals a. So my equation now becomes y equals negative 1/2. Okay, there's my a value times the square root of x minus 1 plus 3. Okay, so that's two examples of how to write the equation given a graph using square root functions. With other functions it's very similar, but we just focused on square roots in this particular video. So if you have any questions or comments, type them below. We'll see you next time.